Hi everyone, today I'm doing a little tutorial on how to make a new dress for Bella because the one that I have is way too short for her. She's flashing her credentials to the nation, so we're going to address that issue today, and I'm going to make her a similar dress to this one but just a little bit longer. So the first thing we need to do is turn the dress inside out to make a pattern for the dress that we're going to make. When we've got it turned inside out, it's the shape that we need it to be, and if we draw around it down the edges and everything, we can see that we have the seam allowance already added. It'll just be a case of drawing around it and adding a little bit onto the bottom. So I'm taking my pencil and I'm going to draw around the edge here. I'm adding a little bit at the top there because there's no seam at the top on this dress. It has no seam attached, so therefore no seam allowance. I'm drawing only half of the dress because what I will then do is fold the paper in half. That way I can ensure that my dress is symmetrical. So there we are, you can see I've drawn half of the dress. Just check that it's that I've got all the right bits that I need in there, like halfway for the neck and everything. There we go. Sort of ignore the collar part when you're drawing the dress pattern. You don't need to add the collar bit yet. There we are. And then, like I say, I'm going to fold that in half, making sure that I match my centre marks to the edge of the paper so that the centre marks are on the fold, and then I'm going to cut out this and it will form the front of our dress. Once you've cut out the front of your dress, we then need to go on to cut out the back. Now the back of the dress will need a seam in it, and it will need a little bit at the top that we can add our fastenings to. So to do that, we need a piece the same shape as this, but with a little bit of about 1/2 inch, I'd say, added to the end. So literally place your front pattern folded in half on the paper, draw around it and add a little 1/2 inch just to that fold seam. There we are. So we're going to cut that out now, and that will form the back of our dress. For this piece we need to cut out 2 pieces, one for each side. So once you've got that cut out and labelled, we can then move on to the collar. So here I'm doing my best to draw around half of the collar. It's like curved at the front and then it's flat or straight down at the back. So do your best to sort of lay it as flat as you can and draw around it. Of course, the collar is optional. You're not forced to add a collar if you don't feel that you want to. But yeah, I'm going to add a collar to mine. Once you've got your collar drawn out as best you can, make sure you label it and cut it out. This is the fabric that I'm going to use. I bought it from eBay and it has a non-fray edge. There are little loose bits coming off there, but as a rule it doesn't fray. So I'm going to lay my pieces onto here along one side. I'm going to draw around them and cut them out. The front can be done either way round, it doesn't matter. But when you're doing the back, make sure that you have one piece facing one way, then flip your pattern piece over and do another piece facing the opposite way. Otherwise you'll have 2 sides instead of 2 opposite sides. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the pieces for the dress. So here are my pattern pieces cut out ready. The next thing I'm going to do is zigzag all the way around the pieces and then join the shoulder seams. You can see here I've joined the shoulder seams, I've zigzagged all the way around each piece, and I have sewn down each side. It's really easy to do, especially on this fabric because it's fairly stiff. So here's the dress turned the right way out and put on the doll, and now I'm just going to gauge how broad a seam I need at the back here. So you can see I've left my seam allowance here, that's the bit we added on to the back of the pattern. So I'm going to stitch about halfway along that seam, and then that'll leave the top there to add the fastenings. So here's the dress inside out, and I'm just lining up that back seam there, ready to stitch it, as I say, about halfway along. Here we are. So I've stitched halfway down the seam, and that's left the top to add the fastening. I'm going to add a piece of Velcro in there, so I'm going to hold that over like that, pin my Velcro into position, and then I'm going to stitch it into place so that her dress can easily be fastened when she's got it on. Okay, so the Velcro's in place, so we need to turn the dress the right way out, and you can see that that's ready there, so that the dress is more or less done. It's just adding the embellishments now, the collar and the decorations. So we fasten the back there, you can see that looks really nice and neat. The next thing I'm going to do is cut out my 2 collar pieces. I'm using quite a broad single-sided satin ribbon, so I'm drawing my collar pieces onto the back of that, and then I'm going to cut them out. You can either use the satin ribbon or you can use some cotton, and if you do that, I'd use 2 layers, and I'd do a little seam around the top and the end, just leaving the bottom open. So here's mine with the ribbon, and now I'm going to test burning the edge of this ribbon. I'm going to test it on a scrap of ribbon to see how it works, and if that works okay, I'm going to finish the edge of my collar using this method, and you can see that that's worked really well. So yeah, that's how I'm going to finish the edge of my ribbon. Just very carefully melt around the edge of it with a lighter. That'll save having to stitch it over or do a double layer. Doing it like this will stop the ribbon from fraying, and it will look neat as well. So now I've marked the front of my dress, the front part, I've marked the centre, and now I'm going to fit my collar, and I'm going to put wrong sides together behind the front of the dress and around to the back, and then when I've got it sewn into position and I fold it over, you'll see the right side of the collar. So carefully pin that into position each side, and then I'm going to hand stitch that into place. So I'm busy hand stitching this carefully into place all around the collar, from the back, round the front and round to the other side. When you get to the end where the fastening is, turn your collar over how you want it to be and put a few stitches just in the end there to hold it down. And be sure to do that on both sides. So now we have our collar added to our dress, and our basic dress is finished. All that's left to do is to decorate it however you decide. So you could do strands of ribbon down the front. Here I'm going to do 2 strands of ribbon down the front with a gap in the middle. Or you could do any design you want, really. It's entirely up to you. You don't even have to do any design at all if that's what you desire. Another thing you could do is to add ribbon around the bottom, perhaps 1 or 2 strands of ribbon around the bottom there. As I say, it's entirely up to you how or what you do. I've decided to make 2 rows of ribbon down the front with a gap in the middle. So I'm going to pin that into position, and then I'm going to very carefully hand stitch it into place, making sure that you get your gap even all the way down and that it's nice and neat. Make sure also that you leave a little bit of ribbon extra at the bottom that you can tuck under just to make it look tidy at the bottom there. Once you've got your ribbon all done and dusted, you can sew it on, and here is the finished dress. I've added a little bow at the top and some buttons down the middle. You can decorate yours however you want. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.